don't walk around with books in your hand to give them out. That makes it like you're giving out, free candy or something. No, your book is more valuable.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Joel Irway here, and welcome to another very special episode of Experts Unleashed. And today, I am super excited. I got my good friend Rob Kosberg here from Bestseller Publishing, and today I wanted to have him on our show here today because I want to talk about a really impressive case study that he shared with me just a while ago about how he helps obviously authors publish best-selling books and turn their books not only into an authority machine but an income machine. And so we were having a conversation a while ago, and he just offhandedly mentioned how he helped one of his clients make $350,000 upon launching the initial book, and he's gone on to use that same book day in and day out. Nothing has changed over the past 5 years. Now, I don't know about you, but as somebody who markets their business every single day, the number one thing that I just kind of get exhausted with is I'm always kind of looking for new ways to bring in clients, new ways to generate leads, new ways to get exposure and grab attention. And so I've known Rob for years, and when he kind of mentioned this, like I've got my own book. I know the power of books, but I still get distracted with all sorts of different types of marketing funnels that I want to go implement. And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I got a client over here. We launched his book about 5 years ago. We did $350,000 on the initial launch. And then he's just gone on to use that book every single day as his primary authority lead gen machine, and nothing has changed. He's using it exactly the same way they did it 5 years ago as he's doing it today. And I think it's really important for us to kind of talk about that. Let's just kind of zoom back in. Let's not get distracted with shiny objects and use one core asset, which is your book, and figure out how to turn that into your evergreen lead generation and authority machine so you can make a bigger impact and make a bigger income. So, Rob, I'm excited, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, buddy. I couldn't have said any of that better myself. So appreciate that incredible introduction.
Well, I'm an excitable kind of guy. So every time I hear like good ideas, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let's go. Let's talk about that. Yeah. And it's, it's a legit thing, meaning like we get shiny objects all the time. And it's like, man, if you just focus on one thing, everybody knows books are great at building authority and building, awareness and presence and lead generation. This can be something that can work day in and day out over and over and over again. So I'd like to have you just kind of take a moment and give us a little context of your methodology and like how you work with authors and how you implement these evergreen systems so people don't have to just chase shiny object after shiny object. Like how does your methodology work? How does your system work?
Thanks, man. Great question. So I guess the first thing to think about with a book, and then maybe I'll talk about some of the specifics of our clients and how we work with them. But the first thing to think about is if you consider those at the top of your field, whatever your field is, whatever your industry, real estate, finance, coaching, consulting, fill in the blank. Those that are really at the pinnacle, those that are celebrities, are authors, period, and end of statement. So there is something, even in this day and age, people often say things like, do people even read books anymore? The right people read books. The people that you want as clients read your books. Our best customers come through my best-selling book. In fact, I even got this thing earmarked because we direct mail my books out to CEOs and others, and earmark where we want them to read. Again, for authority, introduction, credibility, all of that, and to bring them on as clients. So if you consider that and you start from that premise, if that's where you want to go, then you need to have this piece. You need to have a book that is like your foundational thing. So our average client is a busy entrepreneur, right? An expert, a coach, a consultant, a business owner that, he or she is not trying to save money. He or she is trying to save time, which is obviously much more valuable than money. And perhaps they've been trying to write a book for a long, long time. maybe in some cases years, and they've struggled. They've had their issues and challenges. So we help those people to craft an amazing piece of content, a real bookstore quality book that we can launch even to Wall Street Journal. We just launched a client to Wall Street Journal bestseller last week in the real estate space. I think in the last 18 months, we've launched something like 34 authors to Wall Street Journal. At the same time, you don't need to be a Wall Street Journal bestseller. The case study that you're referencing, Taki, did not hit Wall Street Journal bestseller, but he uses his book in conjunction with online social media stuff to attract clients every day into his business. And, that's kind of the model. We call it publish, promote, profit. Publish is everything revolving around the writing of the book. And we ghostwrite for our clients to make it simple for them, capturing their content in their voice. And then, of course, the promotion is about promoting the book, launching it to bestseller. And then the profit phase is everything that happens afterwards, which is an evergreen marketing machine. Using your book with book funnels, using your book with speaking engagements, using your book with PR and media, et cetera.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction to make, because there are probably, at least the way that I look at it, maybe you can clarify if there are more types of authors, but there's the two authors that value two different things. Like, they value fame and they value fortune. Like,
Right.
If you value fame, you want New York Times bestseller, Wall Street Journal bestseller, and that's its own kind of unique avatar. But then there's those who want to use this as kind of the foundation and the pillar point for their business, to build themselves as a credible expert, as an authority, to get clients. And I think that it's really important to establish your goal up front and understand that, the money is made from the book, not necessarily from selling the books, but from what happens on the back end of that book. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. The first book that I wrote, I kind of stumbled in this business, right? I don't come from the traditional publishing world at all. So I wrote a book back in 2008, 2009, when I was transitioning from real estate, because of the real estate crash, into financial services. And I wrote a book. It didn't become a Wall Street Journal bestseller, but that book helped me to build a business from zero. I mean, and in a terrible economy, 2009, 2010, from zero to seven figures and then multi-seven figures thereafter in just about 12 months. And I used that book, I actually gave it away on the radio. It was a very kind of simplified methodology, but it exploded my business. My next books, I do want both, because I'm in the book business, I do want both the authority that comes from being a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller, as well as I use my book for the income and lead generation. So those things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. A speaker, for example, a client that primarily gets his customers from speaking. Well, he or she is going to get the best speaking opportunities by being a Wall Street Journal or USA Today bestseller. In fact, that could be a significant bump in their speaking fees as well, having that kind of mark of credibility. So sometimes those things go hand in hand, but we try to tell our clients, look, it's not, and most of them understand it, it's not about royalties. We're not trying to sell the book. We want to get the book into as many people's hands as possible that are your ideal clients, so they come to you to write really big checks. Whatever that is, whatever service you do, whatever, if you're a coach, if you're a consultant, if you're an expert of some kind, we want someone to write you $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 checks rather than, $1.62 royalty check for buying the book.
Right.
If you get both, great, but the former is what we're looking for, the big checks.
Yeah. So walk me through your publish, promote, profit system, because I think it's really important to understand the trifecta and understand how all this operates, so someone like your client Taki can get 350 grand after the initial launch and then turn that into an evergreen system that becomes their pillar attraction piece for future clients.
Yeah. It's funny. When my office was in LA, Taki came through and we shot a testimonial video. And the funny thing about Taki is he was less excited about the money, which is crazy, than he was about the process. Like he said, the thing that I love the most was the speed. That's what he talks about in his like little testimonial video that he did. And I'm like, what about the 350 grand? Like a lot of people would have been more excited about that. But, for my average client, they maybe don't have the time that, somebody that is willing to go away to a cabin in the woods for 6 months and write their War and Peace, right? For my client, this is pragmatic. It's a means to an end. So what we want is we want to craft a great piece of content that's in their voice. That's challenging in ghostwriting. In fact, we developed our own process. It's fully trademarked and copyrighted. We call it enhanced ghostwriting. The short version of how it works is we have a program director or project manager that works all of the marketing stuff. So before a writer is ever introduced, we want a great hook, a great title, a great subtitle. We want to map out the full table of contents so that we can attract the ideal client to our customer. And all that has to be done really with somebody that has marketing chops. And many writers don't, right? They're the artists. They're, our writers, for example, many of them are screenwriters out of Hollywood. So they're great storytellers, but we want to get the marketing piece done first. So all that's mapped out. Then what we want is we want our client, and we work with them to do this, crafting a chapter much like a great TED Talk is done. A great TED Talk is done in a very formulaic way. There's story, there's open loops, there's content points, et cetera, great conclusion. So we have mapped out this enhanced ghostwriting trademark program in such a way that we capture both content and context. So that's done. It's mapped out with our project manager, and then the writer, one session a week is all we need from a client. The writer will then work so that our client, all they need to do is speak, that all they do is share their story, they share their content points, and then the writer does the rest of the magic. Of course, it needs to be edited. The spoken word is very different than the written word. Like this has been one long run-on sentence, what I've been saying, right, this whole time. Well, no one reads like that, right? They're short, punchy sentences, introductions, conclusions, etc. And so we go through a number of rewrites. We put 4 different sets of eyes on a book for everything from design to formatting to proofreading, et cetera. So all that's done. Takes about 5 or 6 months if a client can give us one session a week. And now we have, a masterful piece of content in their voice ready to go.
Yeah. So that's step 1, which is publish, right? All right. So just to recap, we got craft a piece of content that's in their voice. I think it's fantastic. Craft a chapter like a great TED Talk. I mean, like TED Talk's got to be short, and they got that down to a formula, like 10 to 12 minutes or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but 17 minutes. Yep. And I like the idea. Like we all know how difficult it is to edit, right? But and some people might think like, oh, I'll just dictate. I'll dictate or I'll do an interview and we'll translate
Right.
that into a book. And it's like, okay, I think you made your point, which is like, listen to me right now. Like we're having a conversation. I have one really, really long, run-on sentence. Like that
Yeah.
takes effort to edit that into, written word. And I think that
Yeah.
people overlook that. Like I never even considered that before. Like I've heard of similar styles with ghostwriting and interviewing and whatnot, but you don't realize how much editing work that takes.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And, one of the biggest mistakes with traditional ghostwriting, I experienced this myself. When I wrote my first book, I wrote a big check to a ghostwriter because I knew I wasn't going to write it myself and I wanted speed. And so we traditional ghostwriting works like this. Similar to this format, questions are asked and questions are answered. And that's great to like get content. But context comes from weaving story in to the answers to your questions, telling a great story, having an open loop, having a climactic part of the story, and leaving an open loop and then culminating it. Things like that. Drama has to be created within a book to keep people interested, and traditional ghostwriting doesn't do that. So we we interject that into the process with our clients so that when they speak it, they know, okay, so chapter 2, I'm going to tell this story. I'm going to stop at this point. I'm going to then teach 1, 2, 3, 4, right? To them, it's natural. They know the story. They know the content points. We just have to structure it in a way that we capture their voice. And then we can do the rest of the magic. We do the rewrites and the edits and all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's I don't think this can be understated, the importance of how important that is when you are writing a nonfiction book with the intent to get clients or get gigs. Like, you have to tell the story in a way that adds value
Yeah,
in the eyes of the reader. And so that takes and I've gone through a book writing process, and it was a long time. Like, it takes a
yeah,
lot of work to do it right.
yeah,
And so anyway, I love the fact that you have your own trademark process, because I think people really understand, and hopefully they understand now, that like how the content is presented is incredibly important, and how you are presented and how you are framed as a result of publishing this book.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't know about you. I have purchased books and read them, and it made me not want to work
yes,
with the writer. I have purchased books that were nothing more than a glorified transcript, and I just thought, no, that this did the exact opposite of what the writer intended. It pushed me away. So we got to craft something awesome, right? To attract all different kinds of clients.
yep, 100%. All right, so let's move on to the second pillar, which is promote. So we have publish, promote, profit. Let's go to pillar 2, promote.
Yeah, love it. So when I started bestseller publishing, I even named it with the idea that there's two big problems in writing. Problem number one is that 80% of adults want to write a book, and yet less than 1% ever actually write it. So there's something wrong with how the process is done. So we need a process, number one, to get a great book completed for people. Well, the second part of that equation that most people don't know is the average book sells 250 copies in its lifetime. And most of those copies are to friends, family, and acquaintances of the author. So imagine being one of the top less than 1% of people who ever actually do write the book, and you pour your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and like nobody ever buys it. It's like, oh, this is terrible. So I said, okay, we need to do something a little bit better. It's not about the royalties, but we've got to get the book in the right people's hands. So our standard promotion process, we have 2 levels. Number one is we do a 2-level launch for all of our clients. First step is what we call a soft launch. We do a real vigorous outreach, both our company and our client, into their sphere of influence, et cetera, to get Amazon verified reviews. We need great book reviews right out of the gate. So we have a pretty specific process to do that. We want a nice foundation of great reviews. After that's done, and that's just 2 or 3 weeks, after that's done, we don't ever care about reviews or want to focus on it anymore. After that's done, then we do our what we call hard launch. And we do this for every one of our clients. So we do paid advertising on 50 to 60 different websites worldwide. We write the ads, place the ads, pay for the ads. We do 3 US-based press releases that go out to over 1,000 media outlets, each one of them. And then we do a big social media campaign. And we do that with the guarantee that we're going to hit bestseller on Amazon, not for an hour, not we're going to, get 6 sales and all of a sudden we're going to call ourselves a bestseller. No, but we're going to, like every other major list, we're going to hit bestseller for the whole week and beyond. I was just talking to a client that I launched 3 years ago. I talked to him yesterday. And he's a chiropractor. He's a foremost expert on thoracic outlet syndrome. You don't even know what that is. Most people don't, right? But he makes hundreds of thousands of dollars a year treating people. And his book, 3 years later, is still the #1 bestseller in its category. And its category is not this narrow little niche, but in this specific type of medicine. And this is like in multiple countries. And so if you do it right, and you get, kind of that anchor in Amazon. Amazon will keep feeding you customers. They're your partner in all of this. If they see your book is good, they'll send traffic to you. So we do that for every client. We guarantee that we're going to, not be one of the majority that only gets, 250 sales in its lifetime. And we can do a more advanced launch. Believe it or not, we can actually guarantee that someone hits Wall Street Journal, which is a very significant launch. It's a considerable higher investment to do that, because we have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on marketing, all geared towards 1 week. We need 5,000 to 7,000 sales on multiple platforms to hit Wall Street Journal, USA Today. But we can do that, and for the right person, somebody that really needs / wants that authority and credibility, it's great. And obviously my book is a Wall Street Journal bestseller, and we've launched a ton of others like that. So there are levels to it, but the first level, real bestseller, is what we want to do for every client.
So out of curiosity, like in this promotion stage, like what can an author expect to happen during this massive promotion? Like, let's say we're going, it doesn't matter, no matter what bestseller level you want to promote to,
Yeah.
like you're going to get massive exposure, massive brand awareness. Like, what does that feel like when you're going through those launch weeks? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what happens? Like a massive surge of inbound inquiries, like, because we want to know what the back end looks like. Again, we know book sales are great and whatnot, but that's not our core focus. Like, tell
Right.
me what happens once this massive launch happens in terms of inquiries and exposure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really, really good question. So take one step back, and that is, your book needs to be set up in such a way that it's driving people back to you. So one of the things that we help our clients with in the writing process is next steps in every chapter that take them from the book back to you, back to your website, back to your opt-in page, back to your persuasion pages, indoctrination pages, etc., so that you can get people that are raising their hand saying, hey, I'd like to work with you. If you don't do that properly, then you might get a bunch of readers, but you might not get people that are coming to you. And so we want to do that well to begin with. When we do a good job at that, I've seen, just through the launch process, I've seen clients do $250,000 in sales of people that just found them, read their book, and said, I want to work with you, or can you come out to our corporation, or we want to sign an agreement. I have one client that is an agile consultant for manufacturing firms. It's super narrow, right? I mean, what's the universe of that, of his customer? 10,000 in the world? I don't know what it is. But, the right people read his book, and he got one client from it that was an $80,000 client in 2 months, $40,000 a month over a 2-month process. And he later told me that it amounted to about $250,000 in new business in 3 months, just from the launch of his book. And that's about as narrow a space as possible, which honestly I prefer, right? The more narrow, the better. So, in some cases, nothing may come from it immediately, right? The launch is not about driving customers as much as it's about hitting bestseller for the future prospects of the book. But great things can happen, to answer your question.
And one of the things that I love about books is, for instance, you get it on Amazon and then it becomes searchable, and it's like, our book is on, like, we did not do a proper launch with my book, which I immediately regret. Like, it's just, it's up there. It's I've read the book, and the people that have talked to me about it, they said, Joel, it's like one of the greatest marketing books ever. It's just got a really shitty title, which was, we talked about that actually. You're like, I asked for your advice. You're like, yeah, I mean, the book's great, Joel, but your title's garbage. But anyway, like, they say it's like the greatest content ever, but it sits on Amazon now and still generates sales every month. It does generate inquiries, which is really, really cool. And it's evergreen. I just wish I would have done the launch properly because,
Yeah.
it doesn't have a whole lot of reviews. The reviews are positive, but it's not, you look at it and it's got like 5 reviews and it's like, yeah, it's definitely not doing any favors sitting up there with just a couple of reviews. And I think that it's really important to have, I mean, we know it's really important to have that proper launch process. It's almost like you publish the book and you have to do a good promotion to
Yeah.
launch it, because if you want it to be evergreen, those reviews stay with you forever. And like,
Yeah.
that's what sells your books. That's what sells your book consistently every single day, every single month. It's like, okay, they're going to look at the reviews. They're going to look at how many stars you've got. And like, that's going to be the main deciding factor on whether or not they want to take a risk on buying your book or not. Right.
Totally agree. Yeah. Coincidentally, so the case study I just shared about, this guy came to me many months after publishing his book, and it didn't do well because he didn't do a proper launch on it. Ted Coleman is his name. And he asked me, do you think there's something we can do? And I said, yes, you can relaunch your book anytime. So just even in your situation, Joel, I highly recommend that you give it some attention. You have a great following. You should totally and I'm happy to help you with this stuff. You should totally do some type of review, what we would call a soft launch, to get 30, 50, you could get 100 reviews for your book. And that would be a game changer for traffic, like organic traffic coming to you from Amazon. So again, coincidentally, Ted Coleman didn't launch his book, came to us many months later, relaunched his book, and the sky was the limit after that. So it's funny, we didn't even talk about any of this stuff, but you can totally do that and should.
Rob, you need to turn your salesman hat on and just like start prodding me to do it with you, because like this is basically just selling me to go work with you again. And that's I have to be careful at how many interviews I do with this, because I always end up stroking a check at the end because I just get
I love it. I love
all right.
it.
So, all right, if you have an awesome book, but you did a horrible launch process, obviously Rob's team can help as well. All right. So publish, promote, profit. So publish, obviously get a really, really well crafted piece of content out there, and then promote. You have to do a promotion. Like, you have to do a great launch. A great launch will help your book sell on evergreen, where it carries the weight forever. I mean, I'm a testament in a failed launch. And like, we sell a handful of books every single week or every single month and every single.
We're going to fix that. We're going to fix that.
Yeah. So do a proper launch. It will pay dividends forever. So now let's talk about the final stage, which is profit.
Yeah, the final stage is really again, I'm like not the artist. I'm the pragmatic money guy. And so the final stage is the forever stage, right? It's like so many authors have like the mentality all wrong. They think, oh, I finally got the book done and I've published it, and the work is done. No, it's like everything you've done is now for this. Like, everything you've done is now for the profit stage. And so for our clients, we focus on 3 things. It's lead generation, which there are 100 ways to use your book for lead generation. Speaking engagements. Not every author wants to speak, but many do. And their book is like the number 1 way to get great speaking. And then number 3 is PR and media. And everybody should do some PR and media, if only for the credibility. But I mean, look, here we are, right? This is an element of PR and media, right? Podcasts, blogs, print, and obviously even television and radio. Traditional media still holds a lot of weight, especially in the authority piece. So, we set our clients up with kind of a simple, organic strategy right after the launch of their book. Do A, B, and C. I teach on this every single week. In fact, I do a live coaching call to my clients every single week. I do that forever. And I show them all the different ways to make profit, because the profit phase now lasts forever. It starts organically. You can add paid traffic and other things into it. If you don't ever want to do that, you don't have to do that either. But it's all about those 3 things: lead gen, speaking, PR, and media.
Yeah. And it's funny because there are millions of ways to generate all of that. Lead
Yeah.
gen, PR, and speaking media, and there's nothing better than a book. I think we all understand that. Can you give me some examples of, like, if you're doing these weekly calls, like what are some recent, trainings that you've done that you've shared with your authors on how to
Oh yeah.
leverage a book for profit? I think if we would just like make this a little bit more tangible, people can start to see. Never thought about it that way. Never thought about
Yeah.
using my book that way. So, what are some
Yeah.
examples that are
Yeah.
unique that an author might not think about to make money with it?
Yeah. Great question. So one of my clients is an attorney, and she does trust and especially works with young families to protect their children. And she has her program is $5,000, and then of course that's kind of the basic, getting the trust done, et cetera. So we helped her do her book. It totally smashed. Pamela Moss is her name. She's fantastic attorney, fantastic lady. And so we put together a really simple kind of 3-step organic strategy. Step number one, send 2 copies of your book to every current client that you have. Somebody that you've worked with in the last 3 to 6 months. If that's 20 people, 30 people, 50 people, whatever. The book costs $3 to print. You print it, you send it, you have a nice cover letter in there. Hey, want to let you know that I just completed and published this book. It became a bestseller. I wanted to give you a copy, and I wanted to give you a second copy for anybody else that you know that you think may need this, just as a gift. That's step one. Step two, send a copy of your book to every single lead that you got that didn't become a client in the last 6 months to a year. And I don't remember what she had, 30, 50, something like that. And she did that. I mean, Pam did everything that we talked about. And then step number 3, who are your potential strategic partners, where you could like have a value add relationship where you're giving something to them that is valuable, but there's no competitiveness. So she said, well, like financial advisors are great. Because a young family is setting up their financial program. Well, they need a trust, they need a will, they need to take care of the children if something happens to them. They're great. Also, realtors. I said, okay, so make your list of 20 potential strategic partners. And introduce yourself to them with a copy of your book, and let them know that what you'd love to do is you'd love to offer a copy of your book to every single one of their clients that completes the process with them and is interested in maybe taking the next step. So she did those 3 things. In the first 30 days, she did $60,000 in new clients directly from these 3 simple campaigns, which cost her $200, $250. Now that's only 12 clients, right? 12 times 5,000. Now some of those clients are going to spend more money with her over time, but that was initial. And she has, I think it's 6 or 7 strategic partners now that on a regular basis are putting a free copy of her book, for their completed financial advice, whatever. Hey, here's the next step. You got to take care of your children. You gotta, make sure you have your trust in place, et cetera. And she has all these people now that are getting her book out there, and it only costs $3 a book to do that. So we did a training together, and I brought her on and I said, hey, let's talk through these things. And she talked all through it. And, that's just one example, but I could give you a bunch more. But every single author should do that. Every single author should do that. You will get customers from referrals from that. You'll get customers where they go, I knew I should have done that will, that trust. And gosh, I got to work with Pam. I mean, she just sent me a book. You know what I mean? You're going to get, it's going to happen for you if you just do these simple steps.
Yeah. It's just about being top of mind, man. And sending somebody, a hard copy, right?
Yeah.
Like throwing this in the mail, mailing it to them, like it does wonders. It does wonders. It's just like, it's the thud effect, it's the shock and awe effect, as Dan Kennedy would say.
You're not going to, someone sends you a book, you're not going to throw that book in the garbage, especially if it's someone that you know. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's going to sit on the desk. It's going to be on your book. It's always going to be there as a reminder. I I do more sophisticated paid advertising campaigns, things like that. I can't go to a conference. I was at, Funnel Hacking Live conference, 5,000 people. I can't go to a conference and people not come up to me and tell me, I bought your book. I went down your funnel. I loved your funnel. I should have started my book. I don't know why I didn't do it. I need to work with you. I'm like, yeah, okay, great. I don't know who these people are, right? But
Yeah.
they bought the book and it's
Yeah.
sitting on their desk somewhere. So
Yeah.
yeah, simple.
Yeah. I love it, man, because I've had the same effect, even though I don't sell nearly as many copies as I should because I did a horrible launch, but people still bought it. And I was speaking at our mutual friend, Kevin Rogers. I went to his event last month, spoke at his event. And there were only 20 people there, 20 people in the room. I walk in and within 10 seconds, I kid you not, someone spots me, is holding a copy of my book, is like, dude, I need you to sign this. I want to get a picture of you. It still makes me,
No
it weirds
way.
me out because like I'm not used to that, you know?
That's
But
awesome.
I mean, like it like there are makes your ego feel pretty damn good.
Yeah,
That's for sure. So if
yeah,
like nothing else, if you just want to make your ego feel good, then like
yeah,
you need to get this done. You need to do this the right way. But
yeah,
um, no, it's like there's no better feeling than having people come up and like hunt you down, be like, dude, I got your book. We need to talk, or I need to get a picture with you, or can you sign this for me? Like people love it, man. It's amazing. Um, awesome. So publish, promote, profit. Obviously, very very successful. With Taki. How did he? So Taki was the case study we talked about at the beginning.
yeah.
$350,000 initially when you first launched it. Still using it evergreen 5 years later. Can you talk about what happened during the launch and now how does he utilize that still 5 years later the same exact way?
Yeah, the launch, he did a number of things during launch because it's the launch, right? So what he has continued to do and done very very well is he gives away the book, and I know some authors kind of bristle at that idea, but I mean it's 5 years later, nothing has changed in the book. We haven't updated it. The covers is everything, but he will post on a regular basis a story out of the book or a success, principle or something, and say, this came from chapter 5 of my book. And hey, if you'd like a free copy, comment free copy below, and I'll get you a free copy. Now, what he does is he actually gets them a free PDF, and that starts the conversation. And then that conversation moves into a qualification call and potentially a new customer. There's lots. I mean, that's kind of the simplified version of it, but the social media potentiality of having a book and then using parts of it and it never costing you a dime because you're giving someone the PDF version of it is really really powerful. I mean, I love getting the physical version in people's hands, but if you have a book, there should be some process that you have in place where you're teaching from the book, which is what Taki does, and then offering the book for people that say, "Oh, I want to hear more. I want to
Yeah.
learn more." And that's all that Taki does, and he has been doing it weekly for years, generating. I mean, who knows? It's got to be multiple seven figures in sales. I should have a call with him because he's a good buddy of mine, and ask him what it is because I just see it. I every now and again I'll screenshot it and I'll like I never do anything with it, but I'll screenshot it. I'm like, man, I love that he's doing. I love that
Yeah.
he just is so consistent with it. And you're not consistent with something that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. I mean, it's like Taki's got a big audience. So he leverages this in many ways to feed his existing audience, to grow a new audience. But then we also talked about many clients of yours who go after very, very small niches and they're just
That's
mailing
right.
out individual copies. Boom,
Yes.
netting $60,000 in a couple of weeks or,
Yep.
a couple $100,000. Like it's one of these universal marketing and sales tools that applies for every business,
Yep.
literally every business. Like,
Yeah.
every business can benefit from a book. And it's just about how do you get it done fast? How do you get it done right? How do you get it done quickly? And then how do you leverage it in the right ways to make its full earning potential that a book can drive?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing better as a self-promotion tool than to hand somebody a hard copy of your book.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people, I'm like, look, if you have a book, you have a Ferrari sitting in the garage.
Yeah.
The profit part is driving your Ferrari. And there's lots of ways to drive your Ferrari, right? I like Ferraris. So
And Harleys.
right. Yeah. There's lots of ways. Like you could take your Ferrari to the track. You could put the top down and go 25 miles an hour down A1A, down the beach. Like there's lots of ways to drive it. The point is drive it. The point is get it out of the garage. And so what does that mean for you? Well, I have a client who was starting a new business and he's a networking guy. I hate networking. I don't want to network, but he's a networking guy. And so I said, well, let's set up a simple process for networking. When you meet someone that, is a great candidate, don't walk around with books in your hand to give them out. That makes it like you're giving out, free candy or something. No, your book is more valuable. If you have a meaningful conversation in networking, then get their information. Say, you know what, I wrote a best-selling book on this topic. Would you be interested in a copy? And if they say yes, great, then get their address and send them a copy. I have a client that landed a $100,000 a year coaching client just on that simple networking process. Just he met someone, he's a motorcycle racer. He met him at the motorcycle track and had a conversation, said, hey, I wrote a best-selling book on this topic of performance. You want a copy? And the guy took a picture, had his COO take a picture of him reading the book with his feet up on the desk and sent it to him. They started the conversation and it was a six-figure client, a six-figure 1-year coaching program. So it doesn't matter how you do it. It just needs to work with you, with what fits in your process. Use it in your process.
Yeah. Dude, I've learned so much during this conversation. I mean, as an existing author, and I know the value of having a book, but doing it right, doing it wrong, this helps reignite my fire. And I need to get back on that train, do a relaunch, do a proper, get my Ferrari on the track,
Yeah. Get it out of the garage.
Right. But, having
maybe put a new coat of paint on
it. That's right. Dress it up a little, give it some better fuel. But this just kind of reignited my fire of okay, the urgency is there again. I got to do this. I got to relaunch it. And if you're listening right now and you don't have a book yet, that's fine. Right. I mean, obviously we already talked about, how to, get Rob's team to ghostwrite the book and going through the process and getting it done right, because the content is really, really critical. That's one thing that I did right, is I got it written properly, because people who read it, they come and they talk to me and they're like, that was a fantastic book. That's the best book on marketing and sales that I've ever read. So I know the content is great, but I didn't pair it up with a proper launch. And that's just kind of owning the Mona Lisa and never putting it on display, or buying a Ferrari and never taking it out on the track. And so I loved it, man. So where can people go learn more or reach out to you if they are interested in working with your team?
Yeah, love it. The simplest place would be publishpromoteprofit.com. That's, again, the title of my best-selling book. They can get a copy of it. I give it away free. All they have to do is pay for shipping on that site. So bestsellerpublishing.com, or they can come directly to my business site. There's lots of free stuff there to help people get to know if this is good for them. And that's bestsellerpublishing.org, bestsellerpublishing.org.
Awesome. Rob, it's always a pleasure to have this conversation with you. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And I know if people are seriously considering launching or relaunching their book, you're the number one authority. You're the number one company that comes to the top of the mind, and they need to have a conversation with you. So appreciate you, man. And for everyone listening, go check out publishpromoteprofit.com, grab his book, and seriously give Rob's company a consideration. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, brother.